Russia is countering. So Russia is trapped by the first round and the second round and the third round of sanctions against it, and it needs to react. If it doesn't react, people would say, well, why is Russia taking the hit, and is there a way to intelligently counter this sanction escalation split line? If you back sanction, you buy in that line. So how can you counter it? And Russia made already a good move. It's buying American airplanes, buying 16 or ordering 16 Boeing. So by that it's showing that it's willing to not sanction, to not do a Cold War. So the policy of Russia needs to react, but it also needs to show that it's still willing and going to do trade if the other one likes. So you are strong in your own position if you react, if you don't always take the hit, but if you also stand your ground, if you stand your position as Russia, as a beer, as someone who is not running away or fearfully asking for the back-taking of sanctions. If Russia would, for example, cry around and would say, we don't want sanction and please help us, we need you, and so we want to be friends again, that's not a good, strong reaction. So Russia needs to beware its face, but on the other side it needs to take care that this is not a irreversible point-creating thing, which is, in the end, what is happening with this symbolic agricultural sanction thing. Even if you say only 1 year and you hope that it's rolled back, agriculture, the direct line between the Europeans and the Russians, the food supply line, is, from my viewpoint, I would say it's a symbolic mistake, if you like, because you separate the two people groups. If you eat something from Western Europe, and it's good to be more sustainable, it's good to have good tomatoes on the Russian market again. It's not good to have Dutch chemical tomatoes. It's not good to genetically modified products. So on the one side it's good, but on the other side it's separating the two population groups. And so the unification in your own products and the diversification and even the support and the pressure on the agriculture produce market in Russia is very important, and that's a good side effect. But the negative side effect is that you split the people groups, you split Europeans and Russians, because if you eat something from Russia, if you eat something from Europe, if you eat something from the other nation, you feel connected. That's a psychological, symbolical sanction which is hurtful for Russia and for Europe, and it's counterproductive very, very much according to the goal, which is important, to have Europe united with Russia and to have the groups being friend with one another. And so if you do a sanction which is hurting this connection, you also hurt yourself in a more than one-directional way. One-directional way would be to say, well, it's simply only an economical thing and not a psychological, sociological, how people are connected together. Because if you imagine, if you go to a supermarket and if you don't find the products anymore from Germany, a good German beer, if you like. Good beer is not sanctions, I guess, in the first line, but this would be only one example, and you like German beer, and so you feel associated. If I drink a Russian beer, Russian vodka, I possibly even think in a way about Russia. So if I eat Austrian cheese or Dutch cheese, for example, I feel connected to that. If you heard this, it's like goodbye Euro. Russia is saying goodbye Europe then. And that's symbolically, in a way, a strong message, because Europe is doing the same. So Europe needs to decide, and the European populations need to decide if they want this split between Europe and Russia, and the people, the Europeans, need to decide that. The agriculture business needs to decide that. But how could they do? What could they do different now? Because this is something in a higher political thing, so you accept it. So the population of Russia is in this field directly affected and split from Russia, and so it's like a unnecessary pain in the split between the nations. And why should Russia do so? Because Russia wants, for example, to have a strong relationship, to be able to counter this. So you need a European-friendly Russian population. You don't need the split and the polarization, or the possibility, or the race polarization and nationalization against the European products, because Russia has always separated that. They had separated that. They separated the administration of America from the people of America. They separated the governments of Europe from the economy of Europe, and the government of Germany from the population of Germany. And the agriculture has not been, so that's the viral, negative, spiral, evil, multi-directional spin result out of sanctions done, from my viewpoint and estimation, in a symbolic way according to agriculture. So I would consider this as a huge, huge mistake from my viewpoint. And it has a goal, very simply. It shouldn't hurt so much, so the people try to see what is good for Russia, what is good inner politically, what is good to rebuild our Russian self-understanding of ability to deliver our own food or something like that. And in that direction it's good. It's also good to re-push and to force the agriculture and to be self-sustainable in the long term and in the long run, if Europe will separate itself from Russia more and more. So Russia needs to do so in any way. So you have multi-directional and positive as negative results out of the sanctions. And from my viewpoint, it's still, I would consider it a mistake. And I would say, what can the Russian consumer for the evil things German politicians do in the foreign policy? Nothing. What can the German farmer, and my father has a farm, how can I be responsible if I want to sell good German meat or good German flowers, for example, or good German, not flowers, but some medical products, if I would produce them on my farmland or on our farmland, or if I would produce corn or crop or something like that, which is not genetically modified, and if I want to export it to Russia, why should I take the suffering for that? And is that not a problem in the end, which is not solvable at all? Because you always, if you want to back sanction, you always hurt some groups which you don't want to hurt. And so you hurt them, and so you reach your own goals, and so in a way it's wise to do so, because it's sending a strong signal, and it's a signal which is understood in the population. And so maybe even Russia is by right warning the German agricultural farmers, the populations who like to have Russian products, which can also be sanctioned then later on in the back sanction to the back sanction. Back sanction in the sense of you got sanctions against yourself, so you do something later on which is a conclusionary own sanction against the things which you have been sanctioned on yourself. And so it's a reaction, sanction reaction or something like that. It's, for me, it smells like Russia is buying into the sanction escalation role, which is not good. Could Russia have done different without any sanctions? I guess it's hardly possible. So Russia should have possibly sanctions in a way which is not hurting the relationship between the two population groups, Europeans and Russians. That's even unfair, because the Germans and the Dutch people, they have no problem with Russia, and why should they fuel this separation? And so you need to take care about this side effect. And you can say, well, we don't have anything against the Germans at all, but what other sector should we have chosen if we don't want to damage our own economy in a more damaging way, or other parts of trade which would be more costly according to other factors? For example, if they would have sanctioned the automobile industry, would that be good for Russia? What other sectors could they have chosen? And is it even good to sanction anything at all? Is the back reaction, the negative counter effect for the countries who sanction Russia not enough sanction in itself, occurring and caused by the sanctions of the first round? So is it a political need to sanction back? Agriculture is not a good thing. It's not a good symbolic way, and so as symbolic and symbol politicians speaking in symbols that's much more powerful in the end, and damaging if it's ending up in a real daily life of the populations. And so I will suffer in Germany for things I am not responsible, and so Russian people will suffer for things they are not responsible. And so could be a good result if people really stand up and then they say, if the farmers went to Berlin again and if they demonstrate against these sanctions and against the sanctions before, Russia could build up a political pressure against the foreign policy of Germany and Europe. And so it's a little bit tricky, this whole story. What else can be said to the sanction thing? Russia doesn't win much if it does so. I don't see the benefit for the sanction. And so some people in Germany, they always much earlier jump on the train defending Russia, and they tend to jump on every political move from Vladimir Putin and from Russian foreign policy, from Sergei Lavrov, and then they hail the king of Russia and the king of Europe, which could be possibly in their understanding more likely, and it would be a good king from their viewpoint, Vladimir Putin. Then I say, what are you doing there? Why not staying and sticking to the rational argument? We are Germans. We are not people who run after persons. We are not running after. We are not hailing the competitor of Obama. We are not hailing the enemy of our enemy. We are hailing the best solution. If you hail content, if you hail an answer to a question, you don't hail the one who's speaking. And so you not easily look to the one who's doing a possibly good move and which can hurt someone. And always people. So then you stand there and say, well, where's even the benefit for Russia? It sent a signal. And so what's the benefit of that? Where is the benefit in that? Where's the concrete political benefit? You show strength by that. Why? For whom? Inside Russia? Is this, you need to send a signal? Because if you get a punch, you need to punch back. Is this the punch? You punch back, and if you are strong enough, you get a punch and you don't care. So is the non-sanction not the best sanction? If you sanction, you simply stand there as a nation and say, well, if they don't want to trade with us, we trade with others. So you diversify your trade. So I'm not sure that this is good to buy in the sanction escalation role. It's not good from my viewpoint. It's a spin which is pulled out in political experience, strategical persons. They guess will understand what I'm talking about, because it's rolled out to escalate to the sanction and the sanction against the sanction. Then the next sanction and against the sanction from the other country. So Russia is sanctioning Europe, and we don't even want to sanction one another, because America, as the big brother in Washington, is standing some 100,000 kilometers away and is forcing us to sanction one another. I say, what are we doing there? What are we doing here? We then prepare for what? We even prepare the European market for what? For TTIP products, because the agriculture market is, when it's separating Russia from Europe and Asia from Europe, is creating a different surrounding in the long run for the TTIP. TTIP also trade partnership, whatever that is, to the non-advanced and the non-profit for German companies and German people and European people at all. So if this is a long-term effect or medium-term effect, that the split on the agriculture market is, and it is possibly good to protect the Russian market from non-good, genetically modified TTIP, post-TTIP agriculture products from Germany, so you won't want to import them at all. And so the sanctions, in a way, in a preemptive agriculture economical warfare, if you like, because you need to protect your own people from genetically crap, the negative consequences out of changed gene material in, for example, tomatoes, or in crop, or in the things the cows eat in the end. And so you simply can easily do it like this if you simply sanction the export and the import of agriculture products in the end. But it's pushing Europe in the hands of the American corporatistic military, agriculture, gene mafia, content mafia, and whatever kind of ungood trade relationship and partnership. And so that's something which is totally against my own interest. And in the end, Russia needs to say and can say, well, that's your own responsibility, dear Germans. And so we did what we tried to do. We tried to counter all of this. We tried to really solve things diplomatically, but we have to protect our Russians in Ukraine. We have to protect our Russians in Russia. We have to react, because we are a nation and we are a strong nation. And so we have to react somehow to show that we react. Could it be done different without pushing the Europeans into the hands of an ungood TTIP related or differently organized relationship. And so it's even a long, I think it could, and it's sometimes even you think and say, well, in the end it always ends in a separation between Europe and Russia. And so you say, well, why not doing it now? Even if it hurts, even if Russia has nothing against European or consumers or German farmers or Dutch cheese producers. I'm not so convinced that this is a good move. It could even be a better move to do different, and as I strongly asked for a more strong reaction to protect the Russians in the East Ukraine, in this case I would possibly not have reacted like this, because I think it's, even if the result in the end is a separation between Europe and Russia in any case, this is like a symbolical, and we now go our path and we do our own thing and say, well, do so, but why not still be more associated, according to this symbolically more negatively resulting and speaking to the population thing. So you even cool down the whole thing, which tries to hinder the split from Europe and Russia, because it's just like a symbol, it's like a sign that you buy into it, that Russia is buying into the separation between Russia and Europe. And so it's like an acceptance check. You say, well, okay, you want it like this, you get it like this. And so we close our borders now for your products. We don't eat your cheese anymore because you allow your governments to sanction our gas and blah blah blah. So that's an escalation, that's not good. And you always can say, and the people then who hail Russia, they say then, well, so they run after everything and say, now you see what you get. And Russia is striking back, and they hail the strike back, and they don't see that it's striking themselves and it's striking Russia. And so I say, hail the king, hail the strike back, the back strike, hail the sanctions strike is not a good move. It's never a good move. And it's not even targeting the right people from my viewpoint. So the sanctions from America also target not the right people, but this in the end I say, well, I don't see the benefit in that. I don't really see the benefit in that. And the positive aspects I see, yeah, but the overall benefit is, from my viewpoint, a negative one. It's not good. So that's the way it has developed from my viewpoint, and I pretty much doubt that this is a good thing for Russia in the end too, because it always sets also some kind of example, and so you have an example, and based on this example the next round of sanctions will be extended. And so how to counter it then? How to limit the loss for Russian energy selling things? Russia is disappointed from Europe. Europe has done wrong. Populations in Europe didn't fight back their government negative decisions. Yes, that's right. And so what can we do now there as a system critical, media critical movement? We can even, our hands are bound more the more sanctions are coming, because our arguments are taken away from us even before we speak them out. Before we speak, we are bound by more sanctions. We are bound by more arguments of a separation when Russia is more buying into the separation line, which is in the end preparing to have a more united American-European relationship in trade, in military and other things. And so, but this is happening with every sanction, I guess. And one good thing is that the world is seeing that Russia is getting serious. Some people will say, well, but the trade volume is not very high, so it always finds a buyer. If you have Dutch cheese, they can. So the Dutch people eat more cheese then. What can we do with the cheese? We can send it to the Ukraine, I guess, for free. Barbara Nuland can take the cheese and can hand it out with Poroshenko, and it's a little bit cynical, but this is, for example, a good use then, and maybe even beneficiary to the Russians then. If they don't have anything to eat, they can bake cheese packages for free to the civil war in the Ukraine, and they really should do so. Dutch people should do so, even according to the things which I've heard. For example, for the Russians it would be possibly good, but anyway, it's really cynical. Even for Dutch people it's cynical, because they also have this tragedy with the MH17 shoot down of the plane, or the shoot down from another plane from this plane, or the understood should shoot down from the rebels, which possibly targeted a military plane flying nearby the Malaysian airline plane. And so can Russia really do different? Well, how can this be rolled back? Will it be rolled back? Will the sanctions now find an end? And will it be a positive signal in the end to shock someone to say, well, we don't want to sanction more? For sure not. In the agriculture field, it will even strongly support the TTIP hawks, the neoconservative liberals from the Democratic Party, or the neoconservative hawks from the GOP trade cooperatistic branch, which are in Brussels right now and which try to do a TTIP deal or TSI deal with Euro to cheat the German markets, and to roll out their own companies and to crash German companies, to crash the German market, to enter it and to rule it then. Because if you have a split between in the agriculture field, who's going to substitute this trade thing? So we are doing more trade with whom? With America? America is also an overproduction of agriculture products. So we cannot export our things, agriculture things, I guess, to America, because they want to export on our markets. But in the general term, it's